All right. Hello and welcome to FCI Live 2026. Thank you for joining us today, whether you're here live or watching later. This is Cooperative Grocers Holding Community Through Crisis. And I'll talk a little bit more about what to expect from the session in a second, although if you signed up for it, you probably know. But first, we're just real quickly going to thank our FCI Live champion sponsors. These three, Frontier Co-op, Cabot Creamery Co-op, who the first time ever is a champion sponsor, yay, of the series, and National Co-op Grocers. Frontier and National Co-op Grocers have been longtime champion sponsors of this series. They make it possible for us to not only do this educational work, but to make it free to cooperators across the country inside food co-ops and people just beginning to think about organizing one. So thank you to them. All right, so I'm going to turn this over in just a second to Tamah. This is a topic that I very specifically reached out and asked if folks would be willing to talk about because we were hearing from both startup co-ops and established food co-ops that they were looking for some place to have this conversation. And so we said, sure, let's give it a shot. And I said, Tamah, are you willing? And Tamah was willing to put together this conversation. And we are in a moment of constant unfolding crisis. And for some of our co-ops, maybe that's slightly new in our communities inside our stores. We're not talking about a melting down cooler. We're talking about something very else. And how do we react in this moment and the moments that are going to continue to come? And so I asked Tomas if she'd be willing to convene some GMs from co-ops that are basically in communities who this isn't new. The dealing with crises their communities are going through and figuring out the co-op's role in that moment of crisis for their community is not a new thing for Atalia McCarthy from Dill Pickle Food Co-op and Reynardo Williams from Seward Community Co-op. And so they have graciously agreed to come and share some of their experiences and thoughts. I am going to turn it over to Tama.
Thank you, JQ. Thank you, everyone, for being present this evening. I'm really, really grateful that you did ask, and also grateful for the opportunity to really gain these insights from the experts that are really on the ground, that are moving things in community and really showing up as stewards of the community in moments of crisis. So, as JQ shared, I am Tamah Yisrael. I'm a cooperative governance and financial system strategist at TMH Solutions Hub. I am joined here today by both Atalia and Ray. We're really looking at, we're in a moment right now in history, when you think about it, where everything is under like this deep economic and stress as well as political stress as we see. So one of the things co-ops are really, really important at being and doing for communities is being that anchor for communities. So in today's conversation, and as we shared, this is a conversation. So we'll want a little feedback from you, and also want you to offer your comments and questions in today's conversation. So what does it really look like when you're on the ground? Does it look like with policy and action and things that are happening in community for the general managers and the cooperatives to be that one point of central safety for a community? So with that, I want to ask you participants, it's a small crew tonight, but if you're watching in the aftermath, reflect on what is it that you really want your cooperative groceries to be in moments where there are economic and political challenges. I'm going to drop this more straightforward question in the chat, and then we're going to hear from our experts. What do you expect from your cooperative when your community is going through trauma or economic challenge? What would you like to see your co-op show up? How would you like to see your co-op show up? So I want to give a moment for you to reflect if you're watching in the aftermath, but for our participants who are live to drop their questions in the chat if you have that, or just feedback in the chat. Let's take a moment. Excellent. I love this. I'm loving the feedback that I'm seeing, and I'm just going to call out the couple that are here. a place where people can get along, and even if they vote differently. I like to see my co-op at least name it, name the moment, and hopefully serve as a hub of information. I like I like us to support organizations that are able to do the necessary work. And this last one that I want to call out is our co-op member owners have already come together to take significant action to protect our community. Our co-op organizational structure was essential even before our doors opened. And this is the excitement around how co-ops can be truly core to this moment. So thank you, participants. And now I want to bring in our experts because just getting us excited about this conversation. They have so much that they are on the ground doing. And with that, I want to invite both you, Atalia and Ray, to introduce yourselves, share about your co-op, and maybe name a moment that you're most proud of or excited to share that how your cooperative has shown up as an anchor in the community, especially during a time of like the challenge that we're in today. Atalia, I'll pitch it to you first, and then Ray, you next.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today on this panel. My name's Itaya McCarthy. I've been with the Dill Pickle Food Co-op since 2019. And before then, I worked at the Davis Food Co-op from 2008 to about 2016, I think. Um, but yeah, I think one of the proudest moments that I currently have with our co-op is just our work with Hands Off Chicago right now with the political climate, with ICE taking over Chicago. We've been working um, side by side with our aldermans, our Chamber of Commerce, and our union. Our hourly employees are heavily involved in this sort of action and put on campaigns in our cafe for whistle making packets. So I think that's probably one of the proudest things that we're currently doing is trying to continue to make our community a safe place for not only our shoppers, but the people who live in Logan Square and Avondale and the larger Chicago area safe during this very challenging time where a lot of people can't be safe. A lot of our customers and our community do walking patrols with the nearby school to make sure that students can get home safe. And a lot of our employees and our union have joined those forces too, and we're in communication with those mutual aid organizations. Um, our Roundup recipient for April is ICRR, which is also an immigrant nonprofit organization in Chicago that we're going to be having our change rounded up to for the month of April. But yeah, I think that's probably some of the most proud work that we're currently doing here at our store because it's not only is it coming from our community, but it's also coming from our union. It's coming from our organization, the board, just all over as far as our community goes. And I'll pass
I'm
it on
so,
to you, Ray.
yeah, so exciting. Thank you for sharing that, Ray. What are you
Uh,
excited to share?
What am I excited to share? Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you all for taking the time to spend your evening listening to us. I would say ramble, but it's good ramble though, because it's all good stuff as well. Ray Williams here, Seward Community Co-op, Minneapolis, Minnesota. I've been with Seward for 11 years and been in the CEO role going on 4 years. So again, it's great to just be in community with you all via social media, I guess we can say. Some of the things that I'm very proud of is, Minneapolis has just, I feel like, has had it, dating back to, COVID. We have George Floyd, we have ICE, the attack on, just the Somali community recently, in Minnesota. So it's just been a variety of different things. And the thing is with working in retail overall, right? And then I would say working for a food cooperative, there is no playbook on how to handle crisis, right? Because the time may calls for something different. The community may be looking for some different support. And we as an organization team, like we're just going to try to figure out what we can do in order to try to make our co-op a safer space for people with the ultimate goal of still being able to provide food access during usually very heightened times. With ICE, which was most recently, we did not know what to do. I mean, we knew that it was happening. We was hearing about it. We, sought counsel from legal as well. We tapped into, community resources to say, hell, how can we be prepared, right? Because we want to make sure that our staff feel safe, but we also want to make sure that our customers who are shopping see our co-op as a safer space during this particular time. Our goal was to try to stay as educated as possible about the process. I was really pleased with the local CEOs within the Twin Cities area because we were on weekly calls, just trying to figure out what the other CEOs were doing, and picking up different tools from one another. So we didn't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel, but we created a network where we're like, let's really learn to share. And although the Twin Cities, I would say, just for example, has a lot of food cooperatives in the Twin Cities, the CEOs don't always often connect, even though there is a ton there. And I just want to uplift this, especially with ICE, because it did bring, in my opinion, the CEOs much, much closer. That we're going to be doing a similar panel at CCMA to the conversation that we are having here. Living through the George Floyd, I mean, with civil unrest, I mean, buildings around you are just burning, literally burning, right? Um, People are feeling unsafe, and people are just like, grocery stores, right, or other businesses where it's like, I the only grocery store in the area now, there's no longer a grocery store. How the elders getting food, things of that particular nature. So I made a comment a while ago and saying that one of the things that my focuses has always been is like, how do we make our space a safer space, because we have to provide food access. Like, we have to maintain that commitment, and how can we make it as safe as possible in order for that to happen? But I feel like I'm rambling now, so I'll throw it back over to you,
Uh,
Tamah.
Oh my goodness, no, this from both of y'all, these are some excellent ways that like you can genuinely put like some tangible actions, like
Mhm.
being very present in community, from staying informed, from making sure food access was there, to participating and giving back. It's just so many things that you can kind of like just lift out on a tangible boots on the ground. And I'm just also curious, I want to shift this next question up just a little bit, because this is a lot of external work. And I imagine that there's a lot of internal work, especially for all the other general managers that are listening. Like, how do you as a GM, like keep your team motivated as co-ops being the first line of response in these particular moments? What are the things that you do to keep internally, even for yourself? What do you need to do for your own well-being to be in this headspace of action and really looking for the moments that you can truly show up? So yeah, how do you keep yourselves and your teams motivated in these moments? Jump in there, whoever
Jumping in.
feels. Yeah.
Yeah, I say that the motivation begins prior to the crisis happening, right? Creating an alignment with your team, not pushing these type of things to the side. Like, no, these are real events that are happening. Let's sit down and talk about them. Even if there's an event happening, not in the Twin Cities, if it's something happening and it made the news, how does that impact us? And one of the things I'm very proud of Seward, is that we do try to be very proactive with our, kind of crisis management plans. Like, we've been through a lot, so we learn, so we document, right? How are we going to handle it next time? Who are our community partners, right? And many people probably didn't view this as a community crisis, but it was a community crisis when we had UNFI technology issues and there was not food coming to the store and things of that particular nature. Like, that was a crisis, right? And we had already, had a supply chain disruption plan in place. Like, what does that mean if our supply chain gets disrupted? So for me, the alignment starts prior to, because you don't ignore that these possible things that can happen. And then when they are happening, you're just reassuring to your team that, yo, we prepared for this, right? We don't have all the answers, but we have some work done. So again, I think uplifting the proactiveness to preparing for these type of things as much as you possibly can. So then when they do happen, you're just not really starting on the ground. You have something to build off of.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback off of that, what Ray said, our co-op definitely has, I feel like ever since I've been there, we've only been in crisis mode. It's really nice to be in even though we are dealing with crises all the time, Right now, politically and economically, I feel like this has kind of been a breathing room for our store, but like we have been through crisis since I got there and documenting and coming up with policies and protocols on how to deal with those situations after they happen. That's definitely a big part of being able to grow your co-op and basically ensure your management team that you do know how to react and how to prepare and what to do next time when that type of event happens. And also making sure that you get your manager's feedback in developing those policies, as well as the on the floor staff too, having meetings and coming together and building those policies together. I think that's really brings your team closer together and makes them more confident to deal with crises like this. So like when our store had these crises together, like we already knew what to do. We already had our network of our aldermen, our chamber, our 30 different neighborhood businesses who are also dealing with the exact same thing that we're dealing with, trying to protect their employees. We reached out to them. These are all things that build confidence into your team, and as long as you're relaying that to your team, they also know that that's what you're supposed to do. You know, they're learning from you and as a leader. But yeah, that's kind of like what we've done, and that's what has prepared my management team, at least, is just having those policies, documenting, and then also coming back after the event has happened and recalibrating and seeing if we need to tweak those policies as well.
I love this. And there's like a running thread of like being proactive on all realms of the work that you have to do, right? Just making sure that you stay ahead of the game, finding out where the information is, and then equipping your team with like systems, policies for, practices, ways of being. I really am excited to hear that because these are like tactical tools for general managers to know. Now, I am going to shift this up and then I'm going to bring it back to the questions I sent y'all.
Mm.
But and just listening to you talk, what I'm curious about is if you were coaching yourself, now that you know what you know now, what are two or three things that you would coach your past self on going into this role? And especially, navigating the conditions on the ground that you know that you're facing now. What's one or maybe name one or two if two or three is a lot. What would
Mm.
you what would you give yourself, your past self, coming into this role as general manager?
I'm going to jump in. I would say
Mm.
don't try to be perfect. You're always going to have to change the plan and always be willing to listen to everyone that's connected to your community. Don't shut anyone off. I think those are the main coaching things that I would say to myself. You're never going to get it right the first time. It's okay to tweak it whenever you need to. And then just like continue to work on it. I think those are like the main things that I would say, that I would tell myself in the past for anything that we've been through.
Yeah, very similar to Italia is that you know, reminding myself that if I don't make a mistake, that means I'm not doing my job. Like making a mistake is part of doing my job. So, that is okay. Breathe. Make sure that you take the time to breathe, check in with yourself, right? Because it's so easy to just keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. And then the crisis has ended, right? Quote unquote. And now you are so burnt out. You don't even know like where to even get energy to go back to some level of normal, right? And then I would say my last thing is just reminding myself or coaching myself in the earlier times that risk management is part of the job. And I look at this, when we're getting there, we're dealing with this crisis, we're managing risks, right? And when you're managing risks, a lot comes with that. And but it's part of the role, it's part of the job.
Thank you for both for digging a little deeper and just getting that out because one of the things I heard like is that you both are leading co-ops that are in places where there's constantly a crisis. And so like having that internal practice that way of being for yourself and keeping you balanced is one of the core elements of what you have to do. So I just really wanted to pull that out because there's some secret sauce there in navigating this space that I think I wanted to really highlight. So thank you both for doing that. So now I want to take this about back around to like balancing affordability versus health. You know, we're both in you're both in cities where yeah, food apartheid is really a relevant issue. It's also the crisis that you originally worked into your neighborhood to actually address. And so many co-ops navigate the tension between healthy foods and affordability. How are you addressing food apartheid while still sustaining an actual business?
I'll jump in right there. We're an NCG co-op, so we do receive a lot of resources for trying to achieve affordability in our stores, such as our co-op basics program that we're a part of, where we have our branded house brand, which is Field Day, at a lower price, so that we're able to offer products that are affordable to everyone in the community. We also have other specific programs for our store. We have our needs-based ownership program where anyone who needs they don't have to show anything specific to the cashiers, but if they have link match or use EBT or on Section 8 or anything like that, they can qualify to become a needs-based owner, and they get 10% off their groceries at all times at our store. We also have our link match program where if you spend EBT money at our store, we match up to $20 where you can spend on any produce product in our store, and we match up to $20 for that. We also have our Too Good to Go program where we work with Too Good to Go, where you can buy around $30 worth of groceries for $5 through that specific program. And we also have our mutual aid organizations that we donate to almost every single day of the week. I think we work with about 7 different ones right now, 7 different food pantries, where they come and save some of the produce that we can't obviously continue to sell, as well as we have a food donation program where people can buy up to $20 worth of goods at the front end. That I think we've sold over like 2,000 bags this year already, worth of $20 worth of food that just goes straight into the food pantries every week. So those are kind of like the mutual aid and types of organizations and programs that we work with for our specific co-op. And I think those have been extremely impactful. And we've been able to expand some of our programs to some of our neighboring businesses in the Logandale community. We've done a lot of teamed up community drives with over 30 different businesses. So that's been extremely rewarding for our store.
I'm so excited to hear that. I hear mutual aid, community organizing, all woven through it, and you're really designing for the challenge that your community face. So just really a whole lot of appreciations for that. Ray, I see you ready to jump in.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things that have been shared, Seward, committed to as well too. We have a needs-based discount, as well too, 10% off every shop. Also allows for anyone who meets certain, criteria. They only have to pay $33 to become an owner, and then they just, pay it down, the rest down over time, which is pretty cool. We also, for our roundup that we do each month, every quarter, one of our roundups goes to a food bank. We ensure that through the selection process, just to keep that commitment going. We, signage in our store to really call out, our everyday low prices is what we call them, are the things that you can really get for a very staple price. I think is really important. And then another thing is too, we offer recipes on how to feed a family of four, with under, a certain amount of money. So those are some key, a couple maybe unique things outside of all the other things that have been shared.
I love it. Like I said, it's the design of it. And I have another toss-in question here. I tried not to do this, but you're saying you're saying so many exciting things that it's bubbling up so many ideas. And what I'm curious about is how do you hear back and how do you design from the community's voice? So you may or may not have been a part of the original design of your cooperatives. So if you were, how did you learn from what the community want and embed that into the design of your co-op? But if you weren't, how do you continue to really answer to what the community's needs are, especially when things are shifting for the community?
Yeah, I think our customer comment tool, provides us a significant amount of information on what people are looking for, what people want, and so forth. Social media overall, like, even if it's not directed, even if a customer comment didn't come through, if people are wanting a need or expecting for the co-op to show up a certain way, I mean, social media is definitely going to be a place where it's at. We have our other avenues, where not only for the customer comment, in-store comment, what customers are hearing from the community. We have, the various organization, neighborhood groups, and we have staff who serve on those, on the board and things of that particular nature. So it's a way for us to get connected in that particular level. Our community partners, always open up the door for them to be able to provide us feedback, and we seek it, as well too. And then one of the things we just recently did that we got a lot of, just information on, we did a brand audit, which is really audience research on what our community members, owners, and non-shoppers, really think about the co-op and so forth. And that has brought forth a nice amount of information for us as well.
I love that one. I had not heard of the brand audit before.
Mhm,
That was a really key tool I think you lifted out there. So thank you for
mhm,
sharing that.
mhm.
Natalia, do you have any offerings here?
Yeah, I mean, we get a lot of our input from our shopper surveys and like Ray said, our customer suggestion box. I'm also extremely heavily involved with our community meetings as well as all of our neighborhood associations in the Logandale um, neighborhood. And so that's how I try to at least keep in touch with the community and the needs that they need specifically. And we do have a neighborhood business program, which we have 45 different businesses signed up for. And we meet on a monthly business and we kind of go over the initiatives and what not only the customers that I'm getting, but the customers that they're getting as well are wanting to see from the community as well. But yeah, we do a lot of the things that Ray was saying as far as community outreach goes.
Beautiful. Thank you both for sharing that. I want to take it to a little bit more of the topic around like when things are tough. And I want to really get to the core of like what it means to stand up for what's right in community. And I do know that co-ops have this moment, this place, this space of being in stewardship of what's good for a community. And so when it comes to taking a public stance, how do you navigate a public stance during politically charged moments, especially when you have to balance staff, board, and community, etc.?
I guess I'll jump in. Um, Being someone who's been in the cooperative world since they were 18 and I'm turning 37 now, um, I feel like it's extremely important to know what your customer base, your owner base, what your staff is thinking, as well as what your board is thinking when you're coming up with specific political stances such as this, and even reaching out to your sister co-ops in the region as well, kind of like what Ray did in Minneapolis with the in the Twin Cities. I think gathering all of those um, specific people in one room and coming up with a united front and a united statement is probably the most powerful and the smartest way to go about putting out the cooperative message and what specifically your organization wants, the world to know. So those are all things that I think about, and those are the people that I turn to before I develop any type of political statement, or especially during times like this. I definitely lean on them because you're the GM and you're supposed to make all the decisions, but you're also supposed to make all the decisions based off of all these other people's opinions. And you have to make sure that you have all of them in the same room and you guys all agree on it, which can be extremely difficult, but it can also be extremely powerful too.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question because there's not a formula to it. I think each scenario, each situation, like brings forth different feelings, emotions, thoughts on what people should be doing, and so forth. So it is really an awkward space to operate in, right? But I go back to just the proactiveness, bringing your leadership team along for sure, right? And how you all make decisions, where do they come from? At Sewer, we have like what we consider like our decision making matrix, right? Where it's like, how does it impact the financials? How does this impact, our reputation? How our staff impacted, how our owners impacted, right? And really trying to sit in that piece and then trying to maneuver through it. Um, so bringing my leadership team along, right? It creates this space of accountability, I would say, across the board, right? Because we've been building this culture that we have here. We know what we're talking about. So when there's a situation in front of us, there's multiple people at the table who kind of knows what we're developing and the things we want to respond to and things that we may say we stay away from. And then also staff voice is very big in that because when there's something's going on, staff have expectations and staff are going to hold leadership accountable to either sitting in a space, of making some form of decision on where the cooperative stands. And sometimes, there are decisions that's made that doesn't always align with maybe the loud voice of, staff, right? And those are not great situations to be in. Sometimes there are decisions that are made that are always not aligned with the voice that our ownership or community want to hear. Not a good space to be in, but we try to make decisions that are well vetted out, make decisions that we can justify, and make decisions that we feel really align to the core and culture of who we are as a co-op.
I mean, y'all are like hitting it and nailing this right out the park. And I see a question that did pop up in the chat that also popped up in my mind too. And neither of you can answer this, but it was directed to Italia. Can
Mhm.
you give us any examples of murky political waters you have entered where you took a stand and how did it go? And I would even go further is if not that one, is there an example of how you've had to make a political stance and how did someone had opposition or how did you navigate when that position was challenged?
Um, I would probably say like the most recent example is um the fact that we did not close for like the No King's Day protests recently. Um, that was something that we wanted to support, but we couldn't do it in a way that a lot of people wanted us to do it, just because we're just not financially viable to be able to close for an entire day and pay our staff. And that was a little tough. We got a lot of flack for that, but we were able to like put forth like, hey, like even though we can't close that day, we are going to donate, 5 or 10% of our sales to this specific nonprofit organization. And the board and I came up with a statement that we put out forth to our ownership as well as the community as well. But I would say that that's probably the most recent and murkiest type of political stance that we currently took, and just being extremely transparent and communicative seemed to like calm the waters a little bit for people who like really wanted us to be hardcore and be closed that day.
Excellent. I love this. And just lifting out like remaining true to your values and why you exist as a co-op and that transparency is embedded in like how you exist as a co-op model. So yeah, I really appreciate that. Ray, is there any example or you want to tackle that exact same question?
Yeah, I mean, it was a great example that was just used with the 23rd and closing the store, right? I know that Seward was, not originally planning to close, right? And then through community and connection with our other co-ops, the decision was made. It's like, okay, everybody else seems to be doing it. We're going to close as well too. And we, had those conversations. We're going to donate. We're going to encourage staff to, if they want to participate, to take the day off and go, right? But we still, like, because one of the things that I really do uplift is like, how are we still going to provide food access when everyone else is not doing it, right? How do we still do it? So it was kind of a rub, I would say, internally at first, but we made a decision to close, and I think it was the right decision for us to make.
Thank you for this both. I think those are really some tough situations to be in, especially when you want to stand in the moment and you have to make the call to be on one side or the other. And it's not that you're on well, you do have to be on a side. Let me just be real clear. You do have to be on a side and just making sure that right side is reflected in the values and why you exist and why your member owners and why your staff have chosen to be a part of this team. I think that that part resonated in both your responses. So really appreciate that. There is a comment, a question in the chat that I want to raise out that is very aligned to this part of the discussion we're in. And JQ shares there are definitely some food co-op leaders that feel co-ops should focus only on selling groceries. What will you say to that GM, that as a GM who leads co-ops that have taken an active leadership role in moments of community crisis beyond selling groceries? So yeah, there's this notion that you're a business and you just need to focus on selling food. How do you respond to that, especially given the roles that you have chosen to take?
That's quite the loaded question.
I saw it. I saw it. It was like, okay, Tamah, here you go. It wasn't
Um,
me, but you know.
I don't know. Like as someone who grew up in the cooperative movement,
Mm.
I've always felt that co-ops have been like these radical, like front, in the front lines of like leading this type of movement. So I'm I'm curious who those GMs are. Um,
Mm.
but I completely get it. Like, uh, we should be focusing on groceries, but also like that's not in our cooperative principles, or at least I don't see it that way. I think it's in our cooperative principles to be political and kind of have these types of stances. That's just my specific opinion. And you know, I'm probably the instigator in our organization when it comes to these things, but it's also like I bring people along with me and I'm not forcing them. They're willing to like ride the train, but if they're not willing to ride the train, we come up with like a compromise, I don't like push it that much. And luckily I've worked for co-ops where like our customer base is in line with how I feel about that as well. Same with our staff and just how the culture of Chicago is too. So um, I don't know if I answered that question, but I don't know if Ray, you want to take a
Yeah.
stab at
I
it.
Yeah, I don't know if I have like a good response. My personal opinion is, I can see why a GM may feel that way. And from my experience, right, that to me, there's so many layers under that, right? With the amount of talk. And I think that one of the things that we are responsible for as now, I won't say I think, one of the things we are responsible for as CEOs and GMs of food cooperatives is that we are responsible for the reputation of our organizations, right? And with that being said, not just from a political standpoint, but I say from doing like the right thing, and we think about, food co-ops just being strictly for food. Yes, right. If you think about it literally from a standpoint of physical food, right? But I see Seward as, yes, we do provide food. And sometimes that nourishment that comes from food is in the form of like something physical. And it's just the form of just feeling safer coming into, our food cooperative. So that's where my head goes. I can probably go down a rabbit hole with this, but I share this story. Like prior to even George Floyd, there was a situation in the many Twin Cities that took place where a young man was murdered. His name was Philando Castile, and he was murdered in the Twin Cities. It was made social media like just terrible what happened to this young man. And I remember it was when I first started, a little while after I started at the co-op, because I was still managing our friendship store location. And I mean, we just created space just for staff members and leaders, just to, just like, oh, that emotion that was there that we were all feeling. But I'll never forget that there was a customer that came in the store, and they came in the store and they just stopped at our customer service desk. And people were like, are you okay? Because they just looked so exhausted and beat. And they were like, I just want to be here. This is the only place I want to be, just making reference to the Philando Castile stuff. Like, I feel safe here. Like, this is where I want to be. And they just hung out in like our deli area. So I go back to say that, yes, we can look at it as a place to provide food. And I think there's an opportunity to expand upon food, just being in the physical form and being in a place of food and nourishment, and how can our co-ops show up, to provide that.
I think
Yeah,
that
I
was
would love to
beautiful.
piggyback off of that. Co-ops are more than just grocery stores. We're a place of community where people can come and feel safe for resources, not just food, education, training, um, and anything. Like Ray said, I've had plenty of owners say, this is more than just a grocery store for me. This is where I come. This is where my family is. So, yes, thank you, Ray.
Thank you both. And I think that was a beautiful story. And I really want to hear more, like what are some ways that community either intentionally or unintentionally have used the co-op as a space of sanctuary? I think if you can draw that out, that would really be helpful, because I think that sometimes we can be so uninspired about how things can be because of the tension that we're experiencing in this moment. And so sometimes it takes like a lone voice coming in saying, I just need this space right now. Are there intentional ways that community has shown up, or unintentional ways that community has used the co-op as a space of sanctuary?
I think that is both. I think there's intentional ways in which community does it. And when I say intentional, meaning that they have intentionally, like, show up in a way to create that space. And then I think it's unintentional as well too. This idea that we don't like to use it in the workplace anymore. It's like, oh, we're just all one big family here, just because all of the things that's tied to that, right? But I feel on the flip side, like it is family. It is family, for me with, my coworkers, it's family with the community that comes in. Like, it's community. This is what it's about. When you talk about community, it goes far beyond just a location. To me, community is gathering, being together, helping one another, supporting one another, things of that nature.
Thank you for this.
I mean, yeah, I I agree with Ray. We've our co-op has definitely just become like a community hub. We open up our cafe to any nonprofit organization or any organization that would like to use it. All they have to do is email me and say, "Hey, is your cafe open? Can I have this type of meeting or um, event in your cafe?" And we say yes. And we've had so many amazing mutual aid organizations and just nonprofit organizations come to us and know that we're a safe space, and we're usually going to say yes. And I love that that's what co-ops mean for Chicago now, that and they can come to us, and even though we don't have much money, we can offer them, a free space for them to meet and do really great things for the community. And I think, like you said, sometimes those are intentional and sometimes they're unintentional. I know that we are unintentionally a space for a lot of the transient people in the Logan Square community, where they can come and charge their phones or pick from our love fridge in our store, or use our facilities to use the restroom or wash up for a little bit. I think those are kind of like even though we're not intentionally asking them to do that, those are unintentional ways that we're showing up for the community as well.
And that
Yeah,
was
I
a,
think
let's just say
go
that
right
was,
ahead.
say
Go
that
right
was a
ahead.
good example. As what to maybe just think about something that, you know, the intentional component is when we did close on the no work day, so the 23rd, is that, there was concern, just because we do have people who may be experiencing homelessness, coming into our store and things of that nature. We're like, well, what are they going to do? Right. So we did make sure that we put up, resources like in our windows for support for them on that particular day, because we knew that we were unable to be a resource on that day.
Yeah, that's the nature of how you're stewarding and your co-op being a hub for safety and for community. So I'm just really appreciating these responses. I hope folks are taking notes, not go to the playback because they are dropping some jewels in this conversation today. And I just want to bring it back to safety, and we're going to round this up a little bit. I also want to invite folks, if there are questions that you didn't hear responses or hear answers for, you want to get that, please drop those questions in the chat, and maybe we'll take another moment or two to let you come off mute to ask your question live. But for this one other question I want to ask, what responsibility do co-ops have in protecting your workers and community members, especially in neighborhoods impacted by immigration enforcement and state violence? Have you, do you have examples of how you've shown up, or just general opinions of what the responsibilities should look like?
Um, so I started patrolling Chicago very, very early on, almost a year and a half ago for us. And it was extremely important for our team to be able to come up with a game plan and at least a standard operational procedure on what to do and how to deal if ICE were to ever enter our building, and what our rights were as a specific as employers, to be able to protect our staff and our customers. I worked very closely with our aldermen and our Chamber of Commerce to make sure that we had all of the resources that we need, and we came up with a standard operational procedure that we also shared to all of our neighboring businesses who also copied that standard operational procedure. And we made sure to get it checked by our attorney as well. And we shared that operational procedure with all of our staff. We closed down the store for about 45 minutes to go over the procedure so that everyone felt safe. And our staff really appreciated that. And we also made sure to do a lot of communication to our owners and our shoppers through email, and also just lots of signage in the store as well. And we felt that that was extremely important for us to do. Um, our staff, we're nothing without our staff, and we're nothing without our shoppers. So, like, there's no point in us existing if they don't feel safe or secure in our store.
I really appreciate your response. Jump right on in, Ray.
Yeah, same here. I think it was all about coming up with a plan and making sure that our staff and community was aware. Our community was aware we had a plan in place, right? And then for our staff to know that, yo, we've been thinking about this, right? We don't have all the answers answered, but every time we changed part of the procedure or we found out something new, it was very important for us to get it updated, get it back sent out to staff so that they were all aware of what our plans were. And we had a situation where individuals were following an ICE truck and they were honking them down, and they actually came through our parking lot, the ICE people, just to try to like get away from the people who were honking them down. And just to see the way our staff responded, like they were ready, whistles, like ready to go, right? So to me, like bringing people along, making sure they got the tools, I think that they felt so confident they showed up. I also want to call out, and during this time where co-ops show up, as well too, which is a tad bit different, I would say, even outside of the procedures and processes we put in place. We had an opportunity because we provide community service hours to our staff, right? And the process for our community service hours is that you have to work with a not-for-profit. They have to send a letter on their letterhead stating, hey, you did XYZ, the whole nine. We opened up like our community service hours during the time of ICE really being here, saying that, "Hey, staff, if you're going out, you're volunteering, you're helping support. We know you're not probably going to have nothing overhead, but you can, utilize so many community service hours, for that particular support." So when we talk about showing up and being safe, I think that there are things that we have to do for physical safety inside, but also, how do we extend that, and provide some grace, maybe some policies and procedures that we do have in place to help support the crisis that is happening.
Excellent, excellent responses. And great, great feedback here. I do want to lift out, there are a couple of things that are coming up in the chat right now. Italia, I think you responded to one, but I want to call it out from Scott. Specifically, as a part of your stand taking, did you hang no king signs all around your store and things like that? Italia said yes, and Ray, I want to give you an opportunity to respond out loud if you want.
Yes, we had signs and stuff hung up when we ice out, like all of that was around our store.
Italia, did you want
Yeah,
to add?
we had signs, and we also gave out free whistles, and we still are giving out free whistles currently. Our union packs all of the whistles.
And I
Lovely.
just want to uplift, right? It was during this time of ice, like it really brought, because sometimes there can be, with management and the union, right? You're not always on the same page. I was so happy just to see us working alongside the union and the union working alongside us during this particular time. It was really cool to see.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. We do have another question in the chat from AJ. Hey, AJ. If you make public statements, do you have to get the board involvement approval? How do you navigate that?
Yeah.
I sometimes get the board's approval, and sometimes I just do it without them, depending on what it is. I know that's not a straight answer. Ray, do you want to go?
Yeah, typically don't. Yeah, it's very. I can think of one crisis that was happening that I actually, brought the board in to be heavily involved. But otherwise than that, like all communications are coming from management. We're putting them out, leading that full piece.
Thank you for your responses. There's a comment to you, Italia. I would love, from Karen, I would love to connect with Italia as I've been trying to build a coalition on the South Side to open a co-op. Dill Pickle is the OG food co-op now since the closing of Hyde Park co-op back in the 80s. The Chicago market folks have been a source of support as well. So just want to call out that note. And if you want to drop any info in the chat in response, please do. There's a question here. Plead forgiveness. Scott, do you want to say anything else about this or?
Yeah, I guess I can unmute. I just was responding to Talia, thinking that maybe the way she works with her board is just do it, then plead forgiveness.
No.
I see. I see.
That's
Yeah,
what
do you want to thank you for that. Talia, did you want to offer any more feedback there?
Um, JQ knows this. I have a really tight relationship with my board. I text my board president like at 11 o'clock at night on things like getting things approved by them is extremely easy. They have a lot of confidence in me. And usually I don't piss them off too much. So I usually only get them involved if I think that, the statement is a little dicey. But for the most part, yeah, I have a really great relationship with them.
I love this. So there's a lot of things that will surface here. I want to get y'all to offer one more closing thought because we are nearing the end of this session. And quickly, you can either offer one thing you want people to walk away understanding about the role of cooperatives in this moment, or just something you didn't share that you would like to share in closing.
I think the one thing I would walk away for co-ops, when we talk about the role of co-ops, is don't ignore it. You can be a small rural co-op, a large co-op, medium-sized co-op. If it's going on, do not ignore it. Like, just do not ignore it. Take the opportunity, even if you're like, yo, I do not feel like, based off our community where we live at, we're not going to deal with that. There is probably truth to that. But on the flip side, being that proactive, building that culture and things of that particular nature requires for you to take those opportunities so you can better prepare.
I would say if you're going to take something from this, like you said, be proactive, but also don't be scared to make mistakes and don't be scared to reach out to other co-ops for help. I reach out to all of our other co-ops all of the time, and really that's your resource. If you have co-ops around you in your state or your specific area, reach out to them because they're gonna be your biggest resource too, and they're probably struggling with the exact same issues that you're struggling with as well. And there's no hurt. It's one of our cooperative principles. Being cooperative and uncooperative. So really lean on that.
I want to thank both Ray and Natalia for your wealth of knowledge, your experience, the love and intention that you hold in your communities, and just being a light, a beacon of light in this moment that we're in. So, just really so much gratitude. And just in closing, to general managers and people who may be listening in the aftermath, having a plan, having policies, being in practice, staying informed and also just not ignoring it. Cooperatives are not neutral spaces. They are places where values meet action. And in times like these, the ones that we're in right now, the infrastructure of the cooperative is really there to help communities survive and transform. So thank you, Food Co-op Initiative, for having this conversation. And thank you to both Atalia and Ray. JQ, I want to pass it back over to you.
Thank you guys so much. I want to take a moment just also to thank Tamah for creating, as you see why I asked her to do this, creating such a warm, introspective space where we really can think about our space as cooperatives. Deeply appreciate her and her skill at that. And Tamah and Ray, you guys know every single time I ask you guys something like this, I'm like, there's no way they have time. They're gonna say no. And you guys keep saying yes. And so thank you so much for embodying the cooperative principles and helping out startups along the way. I know how wildly busy you both are. So, but you both really embody something about the cooperative spirit of leading a cooperative that is both very business focused and successful, and understands that a major part of that is that we embody those principles in the cooperative with our staff and with our customers. So I asked you two specifically for a reason. Thank you so much for being willing to share your time and your expertise in this. You know, your co-ops have dealt with a lot and more than other co-ops in a lot of ways. And you guys have a lot that people can learn from your experience because, like you said, Ray, this isn't a time to be quiet. And this isn't going to be the last time that we find our co-ops in these circumstances. And if it hasn't been your co-op yet, though where there's been community upheaval and need for creating safe space, it will come. So thank you guys once again for being
Thank
so
you.
generous.
Thank you for inviting. Thank you for inviting us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I want to real
Bye.
quickly thank all of our sponsors for making this series possible. We couldn't do it without you. And tomorrow we got a lot going on. We have 3 more days of FCI Live. This is the second week. Tomorrow's going to be the only day we're having a session this early. That's why it's highlighted in yellow. We had to squeeze this in because people asked for this topic, and we found an amazing speaker for it. Ann Mizek from HFFI Funding Organization is going to be here talking about if your community needs access to food, is the solution always grocery store? And offering some alternatives and possibilities and questions to ask ourselves about whether if the grocery store is always the right first step or the right step, period. And I think it'll be a really powerful conversation. And then from startup to staying power with Jan Rasikas. She is from Viroqua Food Co-op, the general manager there for decades now. She won't let me, I don't name exactly how many years. And she's going to share with us how her co-op, which was one of those rare startups in the 1990s, how they went from thinking like a startup to thinking like a co-op that stabilized and grew. And then Jade Barker will be here with us. Grocery industry basics. Startups have asked for this. it was a big gap in our offerings at FCI. And you guys said, hey, we need to know more about this basic grocery industry that we're entering. Like when you say we can't be cheaper than the chain, like Walmart, how are we supposed to believe you? What are you talking about? What is this grocery industry thing? And so Jade is offering this session. She offered it up and coming the national conference, talking about like that's right. If you're going to go talk to your city about this co-op you want to start, this grocery store, maybe you should know some about the grocery industry. She's going to give you a really great introduction to some of the basics of what grocery stores are up against, and co-ops are part of that industry. So thank you all for being here. I hope you join us for some of our additional sessions coming up, and have a good night.